Hey everyone, and welcome to this week's On the Spot. I'm Zach Strickland here with a guest, Michael Vincent, joining me this week as JP has a few weeks to take care of some family issues. But, you know, we're still here to talk about the freight market and what we're seeing inside of it right now. And we just had Thanksgiving, Mike, Vincent.
We did. We absolutely
just had
did.
Thanksgiving.
I recall.
Traditionally, a time where we see capacity come offline. The market goes into, you know, it starts its peak season volatility cycle. We've already been in peak season since September, though. And
we've been in peak season since like July.
Right. So we had our outbound tender rejection index jump up to about 28%, just over. We had an all-time high value.
Yeah, right.
But that's only up from like 26%.
Yeah, it wasn't a steep climb to get to 28, right? Which is shocking. Who'd have thought that a year ago?
Yeah. What are we supposed to do with this? So we have a market that's already tight. It got a little bit tighter. Mm-hmm. Do you notice this type of, you know, incremental increase in capacity fluctuation, or what are you supposed to do with this?
You know, it's interesting, right? Because you know, you talk about how, you know, you have your weighted indexes that you look at, and those are, I think, very, very informative, right? Mm-hmm. But when you look at different things, you think, well, there's not much change here. There's not much change from 28% rejection. And so things are really high. You think, well, yeah, rates have kind of stabilized and rejections are stabilized, so all is good. Well, no, almost 1 in 3 loads are being rejected. All is not good. No. It's just not changing from really difficult.
It's a little bit worse for shippers out there, and of course carriers are taking on some of their rates. Now, you know, it's not always great to have this kind of tightness for a carrier, though.
No, it's not.
You know, we worked in the industry for a long time, and
yes, we did.
It's not always great because you're talking about capacity situations where you have to pick and choose who you're covering, and
that's a difficult thing. So you're managing relationships, right? And there's always that danger of who you're taking care of and who else is going to take care of them, right?
Right.
Because you know, we've been in the business, and you know, the business that we were in, our niche business. I mean, people would drop you in the grease for.
Yeah, it was just like a churn and burn.
It was a total churn. It was a total churn. Even with excellent service and that type of stuff, it was very difficult. And so right now, excellent service is picking up 3 out of 4 loads.
Yeah. You're beating the system if you're getting
if you're picking up 3 out of 4 loads. You're right. So who do you go to? The good thing is you're not well, I don't know if it's good or bad, right? Because you're chasing the money.
Right. Yeah, and I think that's the balance that a lot of people need to take into account here, right?
But it is, and it's interesting because, you know, we used to go through bid season and we'd argue like crazy, right? And
I was the pricing guy, you were the sales guy.
I was, but I'd also be arguing with myself because 30 years in operations, and then all of a sudden I was VP of sales, and a lot of things that were coming out of my mouth, I was like, you need to go to confession or go take a shower because, you know, it just felt that's wrong. You know, because I knew exactly what you were doing. I was on your side, but not at the exact same time.
But you had revenue goals to hit. You had to we had to fill up trucks going to certain lanes, et cetera.
Exactly. But my point is this. So it always comes down to what happens in the fourth quarter, or it seems like, you know, the fourth quarter dictates what contracted rates are going to happen next year. Yep. Does this change things? Have shippers learned that they can't just try and get like the cheapest rates and have their routing guides not just get destroyed?
Yeah, I think that's, you know, we were a bottom feeder on our purchase transportation side. We were the first ones off. Yeah. First ones out, and we were okay with that, except for when we completely bailed on our service commitments to our customers.
Yeah, exactly.
and exactly. You know, it's an interesting balance, and I've had this question asked several times, like how much, you know, if you're a broker and you went into 2008 or 2019, you're thinking, okay, I need to build up some contracted freight volumes.
Right.
You know, you diverted a lot of freight to the spot in 2018. Now 2019 comes along, super stable environment for most of the year. We averaged about a 6% tender rejection rate versus the 17 or 18% one the year before.
Which was complete chaos.
Which was haywire. And now we're back there again.
Well, plus 10.
Yeah, plus 10. Yeah. So, you know, I guess the best question to ask is how much, you know, where is that middle ground? Where is that that area that you're okay saying, I'm going to have this much contracted freight volume, and then I'm going to divert this much to spot next year?
I mean, it causes you to rethink things. I don't know where that. I think it's different for everybody, right?
For sure.
But I don't know. Do you look at it more cyclical? Do you now have these like an annual bid where specific quarters or seasons, or you start looking more at the seasonality and adjust rates with a contract?
Yeah.
Or build in some type of flexibility that is there. You see brokers now doing that type of stuff.
Yeah.
Like Convoy's got their guaranteed premium or whatever it is, where it's you've got a margin and full transparency, and you can go in and then evaluate how well they did for you. Sure. Right, and you can opt out at the end of each quarter, each month, or something like that. I forget what it is, but there's more people doing that. I believe Molo's doing a similar thing, and I think he was really Silver was the first one to come out and really start talking about that type of thing. Right. I don't know that he influenced the rest of the market, but it's the first one that I knew of starting to have this more flexible, transparent type of guaranteed. We're going to take X percentage off of what the market, and letting the contract rates with his customers ride the market, but them knowing that they're only going to get charged X amount over and not have that fear of getting dumped into grease by their right. contracted carriers and paying $4 a mile.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah. No, it's an interesting balancing act, and of course this year you can't really apply this year to next year either. We can't. I mean, do you assume that we're going to see a similar pattern next year?
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's going to stay the same.
Yeah, and I think that's having been a financial analyst making budgets year over year. This year's budget. I mean, I just got burnt last year, completely.
Absolutely.
Budgets were completely off the table. You're making a budget this year. What do you do? I mean, we were sitting in those budget meetings arguing over rate increases and volumes and how much sales you were going to make year over year. And that was in a stable market. We had pretty consistent growth year over year during that period of time, but this is not that at all, right?
No, it's not. The niche business we were in was you're right. It was fairly stable unless you had like the housing bubble and stuff like that, right? Which you could kind of see coming. Mm-hmm. I mean, it shocked a lot of people, and well, I mean, hell, Christmas shocks people every year in this industry, right?
Winter came.
Winter this year again? Get out of town. But yeah, I don't.
Yeah, let me ask you this question from the perspective of a broker.
Okay.
Okay, you're a broker. You just saw your whole, your carrier base is a mess. You don't know who's going to give you what. You've put out a bunch of bids right now. Volumes are obviously elevated year over year. How much of that is it going to sustain? How much of that are you going to be able to grow off of? How much of this business are you going to be able to capture? How much of that contracted stuff are you going to be able to rely on into 2021?
Well, not much at all if I'm doing the same things.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I forget who said it, but post-COVID is not going to be pre-COVID.
Right.
And we're not in post-COVID by any means yet, right? Hopefully we will be soon, but we're not. Mm-hmm. But it is those, you've got to see, as a broker, and you see a lot of people trying to doing this, like the Molos and the Convoys, et cetera, and there's others, Arrive, et cetera, that are changing up their game plan based on what happened over the last year. And I think that those type of things are really the key to at least getting some type of sustained growth consistently that you can control, right? Mm-hmm. So it's my relationship with you, the shipper, or Anthony, the carrier, or whoever it happens to be, that I can hopefully control with these added values and these new ways of thinking about contracted rates, et cetera,
right.
And visibility and transparency and that type of stuff. Now, I can't control whether COVID comes or goes, or there's a new one, or trade wars. I can't control that stuff. I can only plan and try and budget based on what I know now and what experts are predicting, and what my own internal experts are predicting. Other than that,
and that's really difficult because there's been a huge disconnection between the macroeconomic environment. When you're looking at unemployment numbers being what they were in the Depression. But yet, the freight economy is completely off the rails.
Yeah, so nobody's working, yet people are spending money like crazy.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, and then we have other stimulus packages on the table, the political environment, obviously, all these questions still in the air. The industrial economy still sluggish to recover. So there's that To me, that looks more like a potential energy, available to come online as consumer spending habits change next year, as the COVID pandemic subsides.
Yeah, and how much of that changes?
Yeah.
Right? If the economy, if the industrials and so on start to spike, people start going back to work, does that reverse all the e-commerce and reverse the freight trends? And do we go back to a 2019 type of situation?
Well, all the models.
Or you know what I'm saying? And when people, I saw a thing where someone was talking about how, the vaccines and so on and so forth would put and people going back to work and going back to a normal life is could be a positive thing for. It was talking to Andrew Cox about this. Could be a boon for maritime.
Right.
And I was like, isn't that counterintuitive? Because that's
what's happening now.
The exact opposite was the boom. So how can the exact opposite of the how does that work? And his point was, you got the fuel, and you've got these other industries that are going to grow up too that could support that as well. But I guess if you keep the e-commerce and people start traveling and going out more, now you've got something crazy.
Yeah. That's truly a crazy environment. That's one of the things that we talked about earlier in the year. We thought, okay, industrial economy slowly starting to recover. A lot of that's dependent on energy and oil, which oil is not doing much at the moment. But eventually, once people start getting out of their houses again, diesel is a huge consumer of oil, crude oil derivative, which has obviously propped up that market to an extent. But if that were to come back online with any significance, obviously business investment has been very subdued here over the last year. Does that come back next year? Do we have this kind of imbalance? Personally, I don't think that we're going to see this huge surge like we saw this year. I think obviously we'll see some reduction in that consumer spending behavior as the pandemic subsides. I know several people have talked about how they're going to start traveling again. They're just dying to get out of the house. So that money's going to go back into airlines.
Those industries are going to have a huge spike. Because, people are just itching to travel and get back face to face.
But I do think that we're going to retain a lot of what we've seen on e-commerce. I think people are now more accustomed to seeing. I agree. The amount of money available, or discretionary income, or whatever you want to call it, that will be available, or that you'll budget in your family for those extra things that you've been buying, that will kind of decrease. But a lot of those things that you bought and from brick and mortar and so on, they won't go back to brick and mortar. There's no need to. No, and a lot of
my wife is not going to go grocery shopping ever again. I can guarantee you that.
Oh, and my parents have now become accustomed to more online activity. So now instead of having to learn of all this new stuff, now they've been forced to learn it, and now it's part of the way that they live.
Yeah, because then they're like, wait a minute, this is great.
Right.
You mean I don't have to go do this hassle? So, I think that.
And Black Friday this year showed that there is still plenty of room there. 44% growth in e-commerce spending this week. So that means, we did see our tender rejection rates come down, capacity come back online. Demand is, there's still plenty of gas left in this tank, don't you think?
Oh yeah, it appeared to be, and I think I would go against many, many experts if I said no. My own opinion is that yes, and it's even stronger because it's validated by just about everybody I talk to.
Yeah, I mean we're going to see this little mini reduction in probably pressure to rates here in the after Thanksgiving, but we still have plenty of volume coming in on the ocean. The ports are still clogged. There's still all sorts of bottlenecks in supply chains across the globe.
Yeah,
lots of freight still ready to move. Do you think the service impacts this volume though? Do you think that maybe some of this freight isn't as important as other freight might be?
I think, it's not. It is. So the only reason there's some importance there is because you got to get it here for Christmas, otherwise,
Exactly. Well,
Cindy Lou, who's waking up without a.
Yeah, exactly. So it's I think we're almost at capacity there. Well, thank you so much for filling in for JP this week.
Yeah, right on, brother. Anytime.
And thank you so much for watching. Make sure to download that FreightWaves TV app to get all of your up-to-date freight market and transportation news. Have a great week.